Hello, abnormals seeking the truth. I have a encounter for you all, or something like that. This one here is pretty weird, and this one's kind of scary to me also. So this channel is going to be a little more on things like this. So please subscribe, guys. Come on over here. We're going to be working on this channel pretty hard. You're not going to want to miss what's coming. Live interviews, so forth, videos, and some pretty scary content. So let's go with this encounter and see what you all think, and I'd love to see your comments at the end and just let me know. Also, if you'd like to support bringing Hunter home, the links are in the description. Thank you so much, and let's get into this one. This encounter occurred 8 years ago and still gives me chills to this day. It was the weekend, a seemingly normal, warm and sunny afternoon. I was home alone. My dad was at work, and my sister and Mum were out running errands. I was still in school and had arranged earlier in the week to play video games with my friends. At the time, Minecraft was very popular amongst my friend groups, and Skype was still the popular default communication channel. So, at the agreed time, I logged on, greeted my friends, and joined one of the popular Minecraft survival servers at the time. We played for an hour without incident, laughing and having fun. I then decided to take a small break to retrieve something from the kitchen and saw my cat. His name was Fudge, at the back door, wanting to be let in. Fudge was a relatively small, dark-colored tabby cat, hence her name, and preferred the outdoors, so it was a nice surprise that she sought to be indoors with me. I let her inside, and she followed me down to my room. I picked her up and put her on my bed so she could settle down and sleep. I then put the headphones on and rejoined the game, and continued to play with my friends. Now this is when things start to get a little strange. From the context, at the time of this encounter, my bed faced the entry to my room, and the placement of my desk I used to game at had me facing the wall with my back to the door. After a few more Minecraft survival rounds, I began to notice that Fudge was refusing to settle down and becoming increasingly more on edge. Her eyes were wide, pupils dilated, and her gaze was fixed intensely on the corner of the room. I frowned, confused, but just chalked it up to her signaling me she wanted to be left alone or brushed or something, but her behavior, it continued, and my game was messing up because I was paying more attention to my cat and because the door was open. But her behavior, it continued to escalate, becoming more and more strange. So strange that I could hardly focus on my game anymore. She began to pace back and forth along the bed. Slowly at first, and then with more speed. Back and forth, until she was practically sprinting across the room. Eves growing whiter, the fur on her tail standing on end and on her back, and growing in volume. My attention was now completely on my cat, the feeling of dread and unease beginning to grow. That's also when I began to feel as though I was being watched, feeling as though I was no longer alone in my house. My friends asked if I was okay, as I had gone quiet on my end, trying to deduce what was going on. I laughed nervously, explaining that Fudge had begun to act sporadic, also attempting to justify her behavior by myself as a random burst of chaotic energy that cats sometimes get. But that feeling of being watched and my cat's strange behavior intensified even more, and I could no longer ignore it. Finally, I removed my headphones, sorry guys, to get her to calm down and attempt to figure out what had got her so worked up. Then the temperature in the room began to drop, growing unnaturally cold despite the hot Australian weather outside. That's when it happened. Fudge dove off the bed, sprinted across my bedroom floor, and leaped so high she almost hit the ceiling. I swear, I had never seen an animal jump to such a height. Whilst in the middle of air, she stretched her paws and attempted to swipe at something in the corner of the room before violently hurling past, leaving me stunned. Then it appeared, guys. A dark shadow, gray in color, transparent and missing its lower half. It stood, now hovered, towering over me. It had no features, no face, no eyes, but I knew it was glaring directly at me. Terror, could primal fear and dread overwhelm me. Every hair on my body stood on end. I couldn't move. The shadow figure lingered there, silent, unmoving, unwavering, just staring right into me for what felt like eternity, but in reality was only a moment. Finally, my flight instinct kicked in. I followed my cat, bolting out of the door past the now disappearing dark, cold figure, down the hall and into the lounge room as fast as I could. My heart was pounding, hands trembling. I frequently glanced back towards the hall to see if it had followed me, or if it would reappear as I used a home phone to dial my mom and sister. As the phone was ringing, I turned on the TV for some background noise. Scared of the silence, my mom finally picked up. I frantically questioned their whereabouts and if they would be home soon. She exclaimed she had just finished the food shopping and was about to head back soon. My sister, having overheard the conversation and the obvious panic in voice, asked, "What is wrong?" I explained everything that happened. The cat's strange behavior, the temperature drop in the room, the feeling of being watched, and finally the shadow appearing in the corner of the room in broad daylight. I begged them to come home, to return as fast as they could, still looking over my shoulder as I spoke. They were skeptical, but remained on the phone with me on their drive home. Finally, I saw my mom's car pull into the drive. I was so relieved I was no longer alone. I once again explained everything that had occurred, in their absence beginning to really process what I had experienced myself. I tried to ration with myself as I was met with their disbelief, but the more I tried to answer their questions, the less it began to make sense. In fact, I probably wouldn't have believed myself, brushed it off as a trick or even a light even. But that didn't explain Fudge's reaction or odd behavior before it appeared. By the time my family went to investigate, the shadow figure was gone and only questioned, and they only asked me, and questions only lingered. Why had it appeared in the middle of the day? What did it want from me, and how long was it there before my cat had noticed it? I refused to enter my room for the next week, and so did my cat. I was too terrified that the shadow figure would appear once more, and still, even after all these years, I can't help but stare in the direction of that corner. The same dread and fear that the emotionless, futureless, dark entity may show itself once more. It was only later that I learned that the previous homeowner's son experienced a similar strange encounter. He saw an apparition of an elderly lady in the same corner of the room, and he too refused to enter the bedroom either. Was his encounter and mine related, or just coincidence? We saw two differently described entities, but it was exact same location. I guess I'll never really know. I'm just glad I wasn't alone when it happened, and that the cat saw it too. I know it sounds funny that I find kind of a somber but safe feeling knowing my cat saw it also. Maybe it helps me to know that I'm not crazy and that my cat saw the same thing I did. Thank you for taking my story and sharing my story. You're very welcome. That story kind of touches home with me. Whenever I lived in we call it the brick home. We were all given the opportunity to pick which bedroom we wanted. Of course, my sister ran and picked the bedroom across from my mom and dad, and I ended up at the bedroom that was down the hall toward the front room across from the bathroom. Which I thought, hey, that's probably a pretty good deal, you know. The first night I stayed in there, I could tell something was wrong. It was a heavy feeling, really weird feeling. I was sleeping in an old hospital bed. It used to crank up and down, and I used to wonder if it was partly to do with it, but Now that I found out some more information from the people that lived there before us, I'm not sure that it did. My dad worked at a manufacturing plant. It was a big manufacturing plant. My dad was a robotics engineer, and he had a lot of fun equipment he would bring home. One of those being a digital air reader that read the temperature. And I kept having these things. I thought, opening my closet door, and there's more stories I'll tell eventually about what I thought was the tooth fairy and things crawling in my floor. But one night we stayed in there, me and my cousin, and we taped around the doors and everything, the windows, like we had saw on a movie we had watched. And we took this air temperature reader. We were laying in there, had it on, and the temperature was, I think it was like 78 or 79. It was a summer night. And we was laying there, and all of a sudden, I mean, it dropped way down like 50s. And it got so cold. And we're laying in the dark. And we start seeing what looks like something crawling in the floor. Of course, we turned the light on. And we didn't see anything there. We ripped the door open and ended up sleeping in the front room. Later on, I would have a lot of encounters in that house. And, well, we was building a home for my uncle. And we got to talking to the guy that had lived there previously. And come to find out, his daughter had also experienced the same apparition that I did in the same room that came from the same place. And the look on my dad's face was priceless because he never believed me until that day. And this was many years later, so. I hope you all enjoyed this one. This is our new channel. Like I said, we're going to be putting out videos on it. So like, subscribe, ring the bell. We'd be glad to have you over here also. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, guys, don't let things in your house that don't belong there, because they might just stand in the corner and watch you.